Hey everyone, Curse Deck Builder here, making my way to 10,000. Today we have a Bruna Light of Alabaster deck. They say, hi, this is my favorite deck. This is Penghua. This is their favorite deck they've worked on for a while. It plays great and unfortunately costs a lot. I get that, but they love it. So they're going to be playing a tournament soon and they're looking for some card recommendations or suggestions to think about. I'm mainly worried my land base isn't high level enough. Additionally, I'm on the fence about including Vanishing. So let's take a look at the deck. So the first thing I needed to do is figure out what Bruna does because this is not a card I see often. So Bruna, or Bubbles as I remember her being back when this card came out, it's a 5/5 Vigilance Flyer for 7, and whenever she attacks or blocks, you may attach to her any number of auras on the battlefield, and then you may put from your hand or graveyard any number of auras to attach with. So I also see that we have quite a bit of strength in this deck. I'm seeing Enlightening Tutor, I'm seeing Mystical Tutor, I'm seeing Arcane Denial, Counterspell, for Fierce Guardianship. We have Solitudes in here. This is clearly meant to perform at a high level. Ancient Tombs in here. So let's see what we can do. So we're on the same page. What needs to happen for this commander to function is you need to, I think I said she was 7 mana, she's 6. You need to cast a 6 mana creature. You need to give her haste. You need her to attack, and then you need to be able to attach any number of cards to it to hopefully win or at least take out one of your opponents. Because you don't want a lot of turns with this deck. It is difficult since you have to pay 2 extra mana every time. It is difficult to be able to rebound after you've lost that initial momentum that you might have had by casting her the first time. So there's a lot I like here. I like the overall strength of the deck. And this is something I've mentioned a few times, is that as our decks get stronger, it seems to be what often happens is that strong decks and strong cards in the support category. I'm going to say support because Esper Sentinel I would count as one of these cards, and it's not an instant or sorcery, but support cards tend to grow in strength to make up for a bit of a weaker commander or creature base. Bruna has a really high ceiling and a really low floor. Her low floor is that you cast her into a counterspell and you've wasted your entire turn. Armageddon's in here, Cataclysm's in here. It's very interesting to me. Um, so, with that in mind, this deck feels like a control deck that is aiming to assemble a game-winning combo to immediately win the game. I think the goal is that you play Bruna, you attack immediately, and you take a player out, as mentioned before. But let's actually dissect that and see what that means. So, what does Bruna need to have in order to be able to do that? Well, if we're doing commander damage, she needs 16 additional points of damage. So, for that, I look at primarily can we give her double strike? If we can give her double strike, we only need to add 6 additional points of damage, which will put her to 11, and then she'll immediately defeat one opponent. Let's see, do we have any double strike? There we go. We have some double strike. The next thing I think about is how would our opponents defeat Bruna? Well, removal would be the main way of taking her out. So I would like her to have hexproof, I would like her to have shroud, and I would like her to have protection from colors to stop directed removal. And I believe we have that in several different ways. We have Swift with Boots and Lightning Greaves, um, both of which will stop, um, will give haste and protect her. And I'm realizing we got to be careful with protection. There's Indestructible, which is also really good. Spectra Ward. has protection from all covers. This effect doesn't remove auras. That's exactly what I wanted to see because that's very necessary because otherwise Bruna's just all the auras are going to fall off of her. And this makes her unblockable. She has flying. I'm a little less concerned with unblockable, especially in higher strength tables. The amount of blockers that are around go down very quickly. Um, and Eldrazi Conscription, both answers are need to hit a lot of power, and it also gives trample, so we will have the necessary evasion to get through. So those are the things I think about. For her, we're going to need to be able to give indestructible to avoid if she makes it around the table, we need, like if she's on the board, we need her to be indestructible to avoid board clears. We need double strike, which we have battle mastery. We need evasion and damage, which we have with Eldrazi Conscription. And then we need either indestructibility or protection, which can also come in the vein of counter spells to protect her while she attacks. So all of this isn't too bad. This is what I would consider one, two. So it's like a 3 or 4 card combo to guarantee take out one player. Um, that's not that as bad as it sounds because Bruna's in the command zone. Only one or two cards, either Crashing Drawbridge for haste or one of the boots needs to be out ahead of time, and the rest of the auras don't need to be cast, they just need to be in your hand. So this deck really needs to be able to sculpt its hand and play a controlling board. I think that's very doable here. I think from what I see, being able to go, a pretty competitive start of Esper Sentinel, holding up counter magic, move into Rhystic Study, having both signets. Gilded Lotus, we'll come back to that. Having Jeweled Lotus, though, having Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, Smothering Tithe. The base is really strong here. You have a lot of really good removal. You have a lot of really good ramp. Um, you have the means to play a slow game. So what would I like to see? I would like to see, first of all, silence. Silence would be really good here because a lot of things have to go right for you to be able to equip everything to Bruna and attack once. So having one of those turns be, especially the first one, where you have to cast Bruna, so you're behind on mana by a large margin, being able to start the turn with a silence and then move into your combo is going to be really strong. So I would like to see that. Grand Abolisher also kind of does this, but I wouldn't mind the redundancy because Silence is also just a formidable spell at more competitive tables. Being able to stop someone from comboing off after they cast a number of cards that require them to continue casting cards is really, really strong. The tutors are nice. I think the tutors are necessary here. Sovereigns of Lost Alara. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, you may tutor, grab an enchantment, put it on. Okay, I think that's fine. I don't think that's great, but I think that's fine. I think we could cut down on the board wipes. Traditionally, at competitive tables, board wipes or more competitive tables, not necessarily CEDH, but leaning towards that, board wipes go down in strength because people tend to play less creatures and hold up more counter magic. So not only are you going to hit less with your board wipe, you're also likely to just get it countered anyways. I'm not saying remove all of them. I think I would definitely keep Supreme Verdict. I would definitely keep Cyclonic Rift and maybe like Wrath. Cataclysm and Armageddon are very interesting to me. Cataclysm Cataclysm is being played here as land destruction, if I'm correct. Because otherwise, Tragic Arrogance is just superior, even though it's 1 mana more, because you make the decisions for each opponent. And Armageddon is obviously being played for the board wipe. And I guess maybe the dream here is to play Bruna and then immediately after Armageddon. just 10 mana, if you're holding up Force of Negation and Force of Will, that's very doable. But does that win you the game? Maybe. It is kind of an all-in combo, right? Because once that happens, if you don't have the cards in hand, like it works well with our strategy of equipping Bruna to be like just a beater and then immediately Armageddon. So you're hoping the fact that your opponents don't draw into Path, Solitude, or Swords of Plowshares, which you yourself play, while having a land. That's the goal. And if so, if they don't draw into that, you're going to beat them over the course of like three-ish turns. I don't dislike that, but otherwise, I feel like it's a dead card. When you don't have the means to cast Bruna and you're holding Armageddon, it's a dead card. And I think that is a theme in this deck. Like, you're not casting Eldrazi Conscription, right? So as long as Eldrazi Conscription is in your hand, it is 100% dependent on Bruna. Once again, that's not a problem. Bruna is your commander, but it's important to note how many of these cards exist. Armageddon, even Cataclysm to an extent. Um, I would say Cataclysm as well. Eldrazi Conscription, Celestial Mantle. These really strong cards are dependent on Bruna. So I want you to think about how often your hand fills up with those cards and how detrimental that can be. And I'm not saying cut all of them. I'm saying maybe reduce the numbers. I would I think it would be nice to cut down even the auras down to what is necessary to immediately win with Bruna. Okay. Um, I love Grand Arbiter Augustine here. This is fantastic. This is the kind of card that you're going to play, and everyone is going to think that he's your secret commander because he fits the strategy really, really well, and will help you get into the position you want to be to win the game. Um, Gilded Lotus feels suspect here. I get that you need the ramp, but 5 mana is a lot, and I don't think it's really gonna. I don't think taking a turn off to cast Lotus, potentially getting it countered, is gonna be where you want to be. Okay. You talked a little about lands. The land base is pretty strong. 9 islands, 9 plains. Um, I think. Do you play fetch lands? You do not, as far as I can see. Obviously, I'm going to recommend fetch lands in a deck like this. You have the power in the rest of the deck. You might as well start cutting out Terramorphic Expanse and basics here and there and start replacing them with white or blue fetch lands. It is expensive, and as many people say, and I wholly agree with, it is not necessarily making your deck that much better. But if you're asking about directions to go for the Bandit Lord, that would be what I would do. Hand of the Hall of the Bandit Lord, of course, is another haste enabler that you don't have, which I'm surprised you don't have. Um, what is that land? Helioids. There is a land that Hall of Helioids Generosity is also surprisingly absent here. Being able to buy, I recognize that Bruna buys back these cards herself, so maybe that's why it's not here. Is there any enchantments? I would think maybe it for let's see. So we've got Mystic Remora, we've got Rhystic Study, we have Smothering Tithe. Those are ones that you'd want to get back that I would consider to be very powerful. That might be it. Okay. With that in mind, I'm not completely against the fact that you don't have it. Drowning Dreams. I assume you mill yourself with this, is the main reason you've chosen to do this. Um, hmm. Yeah. Let's look at your maybe board. Austere Command. is too expensive. Excuse me. ah, drank my tea too fast. Austere Command is too expensive for what you want it to do. Once again, you don't need that many board clears, and if you're worried about artifacts and enchantments, Cataclysm already does that. Tragic Arrogance could also fit the bill. Crashing Drawbridge, I'm a big fan. You should put it in here. Dig Through Time, I think could be fine. This is a bit out of my wheelhouse. I'm not a very much a blue control player, so I'm going to looking at what you have. I don't know how regularly you'll be able to hit 6 cards to delve, and that's 6 cards that you don't want to be from the aura list for Bruna. Plea of Guidance is too much mana. I think Three Dreams is doing that much better. Silent Arbiter. Are you worried about dying to a group of creatures? Aren't the board clears the primary way to deal with that? Or considering that Bruna and Celestial Mantle will gain you so much life, are you really worried about that? I'm not sure what strategies that would be there for. Sure Strike Trident. Earth creature has first strike and unattached it deals damage to its power to target player. Okay, that's cute. I respect the fact that she has vigilance, so you can give her pseudo double strike. But once again, that's with the plan of doing 40 damage as opposed to commander damage, because Sure Strike Trident does not function for that. Granted, if you get her with Eldrazi Conscription, you attack, she's got 15 power, and then you unequip the Sure Strike Trident to do another 15 to another player, perhaps, on the end step before you start. That is pretty strong, but I don't know. I agree that this is a maybe card, and I think it's a little too cute. Treasure Cruise has the same thing with Dig Through Time. Umbra Mystic is really interesting. I think Umbra Mystic would gain a lot of points if you had a few other creatures that you could dump a lot of auras into. Right now, you're pretty low, and I don't think you're in a situation where you want to put it on Grand Abolisher. Like, you don't want to equip Enchant Grand Abolisher and attack, because Grand Abolisher needs to be a ward for your opponents to deal with. So throwing them into combat feels very confident, let's say. And then Umber Mystic's Totem Armor doesn't protect from a number of things that you need protection from. Especially at this level, I think, once again, as your deck shows, Path to Exile, Solitude, Swords to Plowshares are like the removal you're going to be seeing. If you're seeing board clears in black, it's going to be Toxic Deluge that also gets around Totem Armor. Sacrifice effects, exile effects, bounce effects. These are a lot of things that you will see at higher level that will get around Totem Armor. Now you were asking about Vanishing, so I think really briefly we're gonna look at it. Vanishing says enchanted creature phases out. Um, so this is interesting because it has a really high ceiling, because it also phases out all the enchantments that are attached to the creature. But I think if you want equipment phase what? I think if you want that effect, phases? It's because I misspelled equipment. There is this equipment that I think Robe of the Stars does what you want with Vanishing, but a bit better. I do respect the fact that on attack, Vanishing comes back onto Bruna, but I think you'll equally want it for when Bruna doesn't attack. You want it to be able to attach right away. 1 and a white is easier to trigger than blue blue, so you could go blue white or white white. That's nice. I think they're comparable cards. I like the Robe of Stars a little more, but I can see how Vanish, because you can throw the Robe out when there's nothing on the field, whereas Vanishing needs a target. But On the other hand, and this is the important hand, both of these cards tax the mana you need to to activate on the Bruna turn even higher, right? Now you need to be able to hold up 2 additional mana to protect your Bruna. Now, that's not so bad because once again, with things like Force of Will, Force of Negation, you have like a large variety of protection styles that's really good. So people have to break through a lot of different barriers, which makes me think the lack of a Giver of Runes or a Mother of Runes is a little perplexing. I know there's a bit of danger if you name the wrong color, you will lose the enchantments, but it does function as a form of protection. Because even if the enchantments fall off on your next attack, you'll get them back. So that's something to consider. I think I'm having a hard time 100% getting behind them because it is every extra mana we put on the end of this is extending Bruna's mana cost to combo a little bit and making it further and further away for you to do so. Word Slayer, don't play Word Slayer. Um, I think I think it's really cute here, and I get that it works like Armageddon and Cataclysm, but if you want to go in that direction, I don't think this is the deck to do so. It is a strong strategy, but I don't think here you're going to get a lot of success with it. So I covered a lot of things. I really do like the deck. I get the strength, the idea you're going into it. I'm going to say something blasphemous here. I think you might have thought of this, but how amenable would you be to switch your commanders? Play Grand Arbiter, put Bruna in your deck. Yeah, you're losing one of your combo cards into the deck, so you have one less combo card at the start. But now you have a little more of a surprise to it. So your opponents aren't playing around Bruna the whole time because, frankly, when I see Bruna, that's what I'm expecting. Bruna is one of those commanders that needs to be killed on sight because people know what she's going to do. Grand Arbiter needs to be killed on sight because he's so taxing, but they're different, right? I'd rather your opponent spend time countering and dealing with your Grand Arbiter while you set up for Bruna. And it is a bit tough because you can't tutor Bruna exactly. There's a white snow style legendary tutor you could use to tutor her, but it's just a thought I'm having. I think it would be an interesting way to play the deck because it will still be your Bruna deck. It will just have a secret commander. Is there anything else I want to say before I want to wrap this up? I think Corrupted Conscience is very strange here. I'm pretty sure it's here to give Bruna Infect, um, and not to control your opponent's creatures. So with Infect, you just need double strike and Infect. You just need Battle Mastery and Corrupted Conscience. And that makes Sure Strike Trident a lot stronger because now you can, if you have Corrupted Conscience, Eldrazi Conscription, and Sure Strike Trident, you can take out 2 players in one cycle. I don't think there's any other way to give Infect in auras in blue and white. If there is, and I'm wrong, that would be a really fun direction to take the deck. If you ever are using Corrupted Conscience to steal creatures, don't use this card. Use a number of other cards if you want to steal creatures. Um, Also, all that glitters feels weird because it does increase the math in your favor, but if you only have all that glitters, it's an awful card. Maybe with all of your artifacts, I could be wrong. I find it weaker than the rest, but yeah, this deck was a bit harder to break down because I think it's a very strong deck and it's clear the direction you're going to. And the only ways to really improve it involve really delicately dissecting that. So I hope this helped. This is Cursed Deck Builder. If you like this deck assist, and you would like me to assist in fixing up your deck, or if you have another deck you'd like me to fix up, there is a form in the description that you can fill out. All right, hope this helped.